Pooja, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Pooja Bavishi. I am the founder and CEO of Malai. We are an ice cream company, a South Asian inspired ice cream company with brick and mortars in New York and DC. And we're shipping nationwide, and we're in grocery retail in the Northeast. It was a way for me to honor my cultural heritage by putting it in something really fun and accessible like ice cream. Very happy to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about, what the initial vision was and how you kind of grow, what's prompted your growth over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the initial vision was pretty similar to where we are now. Obviously, we've had to pivot many times, but ice cream is a really interesting category because it is sold in a multitude of ways, and it is one of the only categories where there is an expectation that there is a brick and mortar. And so even though the plans changed, like the iterations changed quite a bit throughout the history of Malai, kind of being omni-channel was always part of the plan. That said, I started the business pushing an ice cream cart around New York City.
Pooja, tell us a little bit about how you manage your cash.
Well, I think I do a weekly reporting on cash flow on my balance sheet and my P&L, just to see where we are. And the other big thing for us is that we're a seasonal business. And so 70% of our revenue is earned in just 6 months of the year. And then we have to make it through with a lot of fixed expenses the other parts of the year. And so we need to be fairly accurate with what our projections are and how we're managing cash to make sure that our off season goes properly in the way we want it to.
Pooja, I'm going to ask you to repeat a story that you told right before when we were talking before the workshop started about somebody who asked you about spending some money for their startup.
Starting a business is very sexy. It's very romanticized, and I think one of the questions I got very recently it wasn't a question, but it was more like, I want to start my own business because I don't want to work as much. Like I want to make sure that I have a better quality of life, and I was just I was blown away that was their goal, and the means to the goal was to start a business. It was baffling to me because I have ever since they started Malai, there's not a single, obviously you have days off, but there's not a single day off. You have such ownership over this, and only you can move it forward. And I think that that's what makes it really exciting. And I think that that's what makes it so fulfilling. But is it work-life balance? Is it am I working less? Absolutely not. And sometimes it's a matter of survival, and that's stressful, and that's your daily life. And I think that that's something to always keep in mind when and if you're deciding to do this. I think that the journey is a really, really exciting one. And especially if you're super passionate about what you're doing, then it's a really fulfilling one. But
people are afraid
it's not an easy
of
one.
Raising prices, and you can't scare away customers, but you'd be surprised. Make sure if you're not making enough money, then you're not really in business. So make sure you're making money. Pooja, what are some things you would do differently, knowing what you now know?
Every business is different, and I did what was best for the business at the time. And in order to do things differently, I would have had to have a very different set of circumstances. And so I think it just would have been a completely different situation and a whole new story if I were to change the way I did things. I think that there's always wishes and hopes that you have for the business, and you hope that you can get there, and that's still the truth. The goalposts just keep moving.
Here's another question. Lativa, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, says, they say slow and steady wins the race, but in business, slow and steady may put you out of business. How do you plan right at the beginning of a startup to stay afloat until you're making enough profit or until you can pay yourself? I'll turn that to Pooja because
the majority of businesses do grow slowly. And so to kind of piggyback on the previous question, if that means that you're still working full time and you're doing this on the weekends, right? If this means that you're just doing, you're dabbling in it and you're not ready to commit full time, do it that way. Gather information, and then when you're ready, dive in feet first. But it's a slow growing business Usually the success stories have been slow growing businesses. And so I'm not one to talk about a fast growing business.
What's the best way to sell a handmade product? You mentioned that initially yours was a handmade product. So, I mean, you mentioned that the food carts, but do you have any suggestions? We don't know what kind of product this is.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's probably not food. So obviously my thoughts on this is very specific to food, but I think with food or anything handmade, the best way is to figure out how to connect with your customers, because it's a product that's so personal to you and likely has a story behind it. Your customers will want to know it, and that's part of the brand. And so in whatever way you sell, I would just make sure that personal aspect is a part of it. And so for us, it was through fairs and markets. It was like a way for us to like constantly talk to our customers and to get that feedback. And then eventually it was a brick and mortar. But there are avenues like that which have more a direct connection.
Is there anything else that you would recommend that people do that you haven't said already? Let's see, Pooja, I'll go back to you.
I mean, no. If you're ready to do this, you're ready to do this. I think the only piece of advice that I would give to anyone at any stage is to remember to run your own race. Stop comparing yourself to others. Stop comparing yourself to the unicorns. Like, all of that is just noise, and it's going to take longer for you to get to where you want to get to. So keep your